Bruce. Is there anyone on that point? It sounds like you're a very polite, very respectful person on set. Is there anyone you've worked with professionally that has been very intimidating for you? Is it like possibly one of those A-list stars that get attached to your project? Or
I don't know about intimidating. There's been a few who I thought were quite mad. Just bonkers. And I thought, well, this one's really weird. I'll have to just deal with them. You get odd actors who resent other actors. You get some actors who don't like the others. They're jealous of the other actors. Only once, I think, did I ever work with an actor who was so nuts. I picked him up at one point, threw him off the edge of the set, and said, "Don't come back." And then the studio called a few days later and said, "What are you doing? I mean, we've only shot half his scenes." I said, "He's crazy. I can't deal with him. It's impossible." Anyway, about a week later, he did come back. We had to struggle through the rest of the film. It was murder. It was an actor called J.T. Walsh. Actually, the funny thing was, he was a great actor. He could do it all effortlessly. He just made very heavy weather of everything. But 99 times out of 100, the actors are absolutely fine. Even I've directed films with a great stack of big stars. They've all been wonderful.
We have a question here. Do you want to read it?
Bruce, the first movie I ever saw of yours was Breaker Morant at age about 6 or 7 with my grandfather. And I actually asked you this question this morning. Can you describe how you choose those brilliant movies you've made, Breaker Morant, Driving Miss Daisy, Mao's Last Dancer, and decide, you told me that it's good stories, which I do know, but how you said, you know, that's the movie I want to make, these are the people I want in it, etc.?
Oh, well, choosing the stories are just stories that appeal to me. You know, like I'll read, someone will tell me a story, or I'll read a book, or I'll see a newspaper item and I think that'll make a good film, and then I'll write a script and try and get the money. I mean, that's all it is. They're just stories that strike me. I mean, at the moment I'm working on a script about you know the black box they put in aeroplanes? Mm-hmm. Well, I found out that the black box was invented by an Australian.
Yes.
Who invented it in his spare time. He worked for the CSIRO, and he
Yes,
went to them with the idea.
I
And he
did
said,
know
"Look,
that.
if you have a black box in the plane that's in a proper casing, and the plane crashes, you'll have all the information which will tell you why it came down. And this is a great idea." And the CSIRO said, no, that's never
It will
worked.
never work.
So he did it in his spare time. Rented a plane, took the plane up, brought it down, got the box out, and all the information about the flight was in it. Then he sold the idea to the Americans and the British. He never got a penny for this because he was working for the CSIRO at the time. And they sold it all over the world. The Australians are about the last ones to adopt it. And I researched it. This guy's dead. And I met his daughter and son and got a lot of family papers. And I'm writing a script about the story of the black box because I think it's a fabulous story and should be told.
We have a question up there. With Brie?
Hi, Bruce.
Not working.
No, it's working.
Sorry. Hi, Bruce. How are we going today, mate?
Have I?
How are we going today?
Oh, have you done all right?
That's good, mate.
I've got a new hat.
Yes.
That's
So
so good.
Sandy.
Very good. I was reading something online the other day about diversity in Hollywood and Australian media and how it's very not so diverse, not so much when it comes to race, but for example, the other day I was watching TV, a couple of channels, and I found that the same like dozen or so actors are always on. And I was just thinking, do we actually have like a diversity problem? Like, do we have like this? Because I know some actors bring in like, if you put an actor in, that guarantees certain funding or certain stars and something like that. but do you think here in Australia, and more so Hollywood in America, should take more risks by putting unknown actors rather than saying, oh, let's grab, for example, Peter Hellier or John Howard or Margot Robbie or etc. etc. Be a bit more riskful and say, all right, let's bring in this person instead of let's bring in that person because guaranteed money. Let's take a risk on this person.
Well, most of the producers making films want to have one or two well-known actors in it in order to be able to get an audience. But there's plenty of actors coming in all the time because there's smaller roles where they won't care. You know, if you're directing a film, I mean, they often say to me, get one or two names for the big roles, and we don't care who you put in the other roles. So in the other roles, and they can be quite substantial, you can usually, as a director, put in whoever you like, and a lot of those people become well known. That happens all the time. It's just an ongoing process. It's been like that for over 100 years in films. You keep getting new people. Look at Margot Robbie. A few years ago, she was just a model on the Gold Coast. And then someone cast her in a role in America, and she's the biggest female star in the world.
Bruce, are there any things about the process of working in Hollywood as opposed to working in Australia that you can speak to? Are there major differences between how you make your films there and here?
No, I don't think there's any differences. No, the crews are all much the same. No, I mean, Hollywood, there's a very high level of expertise in all the fields. And I've worked with wonderful crews there, and then I've also worked with very good crews here. I mean, here the crews have got better and better. You know, when it started off in the 70s, it was quite tricky to find people to do things like designers, carpenters, builders, grips, and assistant directors and all that kind of stuff. But it's been now like 30, 40 years, and there's a big, solid core of very, very talented people. It's much the same, really. I mean, I've made films too in Bulgaria and Ireland, and good crews everywhere. Italy, Vienna, I made film in Vienna, France. They're all much the same. They're pretty interchangeable. They even tell the same sort of jokes.
Michelle? Can I just suggest that Brett and Meg just leave the mics on, and if people are talking and don't bother to turn them off, just leave them on.
I asked a question a little like this to Damien earlier, but I'm really interested in the process of the storytelling in its role as a director. And I know I'm a complete rank amateur, but I seem to know that sometimes films are shot out of sequence because of time and location. But if it's your script you've written, or it's a script that someone else has written or worked on, does your approach or your interpretation of the story change in the process of being the director of the film and working with the actors who are the characters in the film?
You mean, does it change once I'm filming?
I guess so, because it sounds like you're quite clear about how you want it to go, but do you find sometimes there's the process of discovery as you are actually shooting the film? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But I think probably what you're describing does happen in a lot of films, but not for me. I mean, virtually all the films I've done have been done on very tight budgets, and you can't sort of walk on and say, oh, wait a minute, let's not do the fall of Constantinople here. We'll make it the Charge of the Light Brigade. You can't do that. You can't make changes. There's not the money. It's got to really come in on schedule and on time. So I usually work from very tight scripts, and I storyboard the films beforehand. So these are usually the storyboards. I mean, my drawings are absolutely dreadful, but you can at least look at them and see where the camera goes each time. And they're usually, on most of the films I've done, the first assistant has these printed, and they give it to the cameraman and the lighting guys and the grips, so they can look at it and say, oh, we're doing 6 shots, there's a wide shot from over there, and there's one from up there, and there's a crane shot from here on a 50mm lens, so I've got it all worked out. And for me, I find that's good, because I can think the film through beforehand. I work out dramatically how it's going to work. For me, I mean, I don't know how to go, like, for all of you, but directing, you've got to do something. You know? That's really what I do. I think if you're directing, it's the easier, if you're going to work in films, directing is the easiest job. Because really you're telling everybody else, just say, put the camera there. And you say to the actors, just do the lines. And usually, 99 times out of 100, they never forget a word. I mean, I think of Ladies in Black, no actor ever fluffed a line, ever, in the entire shoot. They were always word perfect from one end of it to the other. So you've got that. The cameraman, see, don't ever try to be a cameraman or camerawoman. You've got so much to learn with the digital technology drive you mad. I couldn't do it in a fit. So I can't do it. Although I can sit with an editor and say, no, I want the shot to cut here and go there, and then that comes there, and cut it after that word, then cut the other angle in. But I don't press all the buttons, because have you looked at those machines? you really need a PhD in some physics, some sort of science subject to be able to operate them. But if you're directing, you just say, just put the camera there, and then you say to the actor, just do it a little slower, and you missed a couple of words. And when you're with the girl, just look into her eyes and then look away. It's easy. But if you're doing some of the technical jobs, you're really up against it. But directing, you can bluff your way through without any real problem.
So we're not...
We have a question from Rob up the back.
Hello, Bruce, and welcome to Inverell. You sort of part answered my question in the last 2 minutes, say, but we've been talking about the actors and all that, how you interact with them. But what I would like to know is how much do you have to do with actual cinematography? You know, like we all see it on TVs where the director looks at things. No, that's not good. Let's do all that again. Does that really happen, or what's it like in your world?
Well, you probably say do it again. Could be for a number of reasons. You know that an actor missed a mark or something, or some nuance in the performance was not right, or sometimes I'll be directing actors and they'll do it and I'll think of something and I'll say, wait a minute, just turn around after you've said such and such, not before. Things that you can't work out everything on paper. And you may do it again for that reason. But for the photography, you see, I do, because I've done little sketches, all the compositions are worked out beforehand. Everything. Even if you're doing action films, like I've done a couple of big action films. We haven't got any here, but Tender Mercies or Pancho Villa had big action sequences. And I storyboard them too. Every single frame. Sort of the bullet hits, you know, you have a close shot of a bullet hitting the bottle, have a shot of the bottle hitting, falling over, have another one of the bottle rolling onto the floor. Whatever it is, I'll storyboard everything. But see, so you work with a cameraman on that, and of course you've got to work with a cameraman who can do all these things. And usually what I'll do is, well before the film, I'll go with the cameraman, we'll discuss the kind of looks we want. I mean, should it be hard looking, should it be soft? Should the colours follow a certain palette? I mean, on the Ladies in Black, for example, the cameraman and he did a number of tests with different filters on the lens. Because it's set in 1959, he said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we just took the edge of the image? Because the digital images are very sharp and very sharp. And he said, we won't make them out of focus or soft, but we'll just edge them slightly. And he put on a black filter. It's just very fine black lines, and it just helped with the period atmosphere. So we did tests with a few of these filters, and then we sat down, we screened it in a cinema, big cinema, and then we both looked at it, and I said, you know, such and such a one is the best, and then he shot the whole film through that filter. We do that sort of thing. Yeah. You need a cameraman who's really very cooperative, and can change his style. That's why I've done 13 films with Peter James. Did he do all of these? No, he did a few. He did a couple of these. But, he's one of those cameramen who can change his photographic style according to the subject matter. They can't all do that. A lot of them like the same way, no matter what the film is. So that's boring. I like it to change according to what the subject is. I mean, Breaker Morant doesn't look anything like Ladies in Black.
Before we have a question up there with Brett, I'm very conscious that we have quite a few filmmakers or budding filmmakers down the front. So if would you like to ask a question, or just bring the mic to you? I'll get Brett to ask first, and then you can have a think about it. So Brett, you go.
Hi, how you going? I was wondering how you feel, I guess as a younger, I don't know if it's because I'm in the country or because I overthink things, but I always feel like that you need to be, per se, qualified. You need to go to film school, you need to do your TAFE, insert 3, your Bachelor of whatever. In your experience, is hands-on learning, just putting yourself out there, the best way to do it, or would you recommend